Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 197, which is called Delta, I believe. And this episode is an adaptation of Boruto manga chapter 30. And again, it's another really accurate adaptation, but with a few extra scenes added in to fill out the time for a full episode. In this case, these additional scenes are basically just a pretty quick scene towards the start, just showing Himawari happy with the new vase that Kawaki has bought, to set up the Kawaki Himawari scene discussing him putting the vase back together. And then the other new scene is probably the completely brand new scene that actually adds kind of a bit and relates to kind of the way they've been doing things the last while with these arcs. Is a new scene with Kara in kind of Kara headquarters of Amado having a conversation with Code, where they're still talking about finding out who the traitor is. So we get more on Code, who obviously in the manga doesn't really get to stand out until some of the most recent chapters, basically. But in the anime, they're doing the job of setting him up earlier and getting across this idea that he is kind of, he seems closer with Jigen than some of the others, but Jigen still obviously tends to keep them all on the outside, and actually Amado seems to have one of the closest relationships with Jigen, and we just get across that Jigen's sort of like recuperating, regenerating. Code hasn't seen him in a while, wants to know where he is. He finds out that Amado is investigating, I wonder who's checked on Kawaki's file. That would tell us who has been interested in messing with the Kara and the vessel. And we just ultimately get around to this idea where Amado wants Code to go check on where Boro is, because Boro is the other member of Kara who has sort of avoided coming back to headquarters to get sort of checked out by Amado. So he's maybe being suspected as being the traitor in all of this. And so Amado is going to get permission from Jigen for Code to leave, because Code reveals that it is a rule from Jigen that he doesn't allow Code to leave headquarters, which is kind of interesting. So I guess that means in terms of new anime content, we are going to get this sort of new story of Code going to find where Boro is, which I think is going to act as setup for some of the stuff we recently learned in the manga without going into too much detail. And that's good, because I think Code and Boro are probably the two Kara members we probably need to know the most extra about. So that should be good in terms of, I'm guessing they'll do the Naruto Delta fight, and then they'll probably go quite heavily into what Code is doing, trying to find Boro as sort of anime original content, but is kind of new canon content that we didn't get. So I think that's going to work out nicely. Beyond that, this obviously was more of a setup chapter, in that a lot of people thought that this was going to be the episode where the Naruto Delta fight actually starts, but it only properly is about to start right at the end. So this is typically the pacing you expect from a shonen and something like that, where Delta's making her approach to come after Naruto. You're wondering, will we get to see any of the fight? And of course, everyone pretty much knows. No, they're going to end with the face-off, and that's exactly what they do. But they do give you a little bit of insight in terms of, okay, well, what are Delta's powers? Well, again, like all the Kara members, she seems to have a full scientific ninja tool body, including a drone thing that she can send flying out of her back that can spy for her. So she has a sort of equivalent power to Kashin Koji's kind of surveillance toad, because obviously Koji was allowed to go into the village. His chakra is viewed as being a valid one in the Leaf Village. They are aware of it. It's not a new signature, but Delta is new. So when she does go into the village, Ino gets alerted, and the whole surveillance system of the Leaf Village is on alert. And I did like this scene because it showed how secure the Leaf Village actually is, that Ino senses it straight away. She contacts the surveillance headquarters and is like, okay, prepare everything. She then immediately creates a communication link with Naruto and is like, how do you want to handle this? And he's like, okay, I know where this Kara member is coming to get Kawaki. I'll handle this myself to avoid damage. So have the police force stand down. We don't need to get everyone into a panic, and it just sets up like, okay, big fight coming up here. But interestingly, of course, Boruto's there, Kawaki's there, and Himawari's also there. So Himawari's in danger here. That's going to be an important kind of factor in all of this. And I suppose Naruto has kind of tasked Boruto with protecting Himawari while this fight goes on. Because obviously, the idea is that Kawaki probably has skills enough to maybe hurt Delta if she's like pinned down, but Boruto and Kawaki aren't really on the level to face Delta just yet, because Delta is a Kara inner member. This is a complete step up than Ao, who is a Kara outer member, and Garo and those type of characters. So this is meant to be a massive kind of power increase in that this is one of the core key members of Kara who's finally getting a fight. Now, admittedly, it's one of these members against Naruto, like the most powerful character effectively in the series to a degree. So there's still that expectation where Naruto should be able to defeat her somewhat comfortably, you'd expect, but we'll see how it goes. Again, it's not all about sort of power levels and stuff like that. There's more dynamics going on here. Outside of that, the episode focused, I think, primarily on Kawaki actually starting to try and put the vase back together using the glue. Himawari actually is interested in this and sort of sticks with Kawaki while he does this. And you basically get the idea that Kawaki complains about it a lot and that he doesn't think this is practical. It's like a waste of time to put so much effort into trying to reconstruct this vase when it will probably never be as good as it once was. But he still continues to do it despite what he says to Himawari, despite what he says to Boruto. He still is planning to remake it. So it just speaks to, Kawaki's kind of devotion to the cause here. He realizes it's not practical, but in terms of his relationship, his dynamic in the house, this is something he does kind of feels he has to do to make amends for this. So I do like that. From there, we basically just move into Boruto now wants to learn more about the karma mark. He mentions stuff like he doesn't want to let it control him, so he wants to develop a control over it. And the way he's going to do that is, of course, by having Kawaki teach him how to control the ability, because Kawaki has some control over it himself. So they have their own sort of sparring match here. And again, this is pretty cool. It references, of course, the last episode where Naruto and Boruto sparred, but this time it's Boruto and Kawaki. So immediately, Kawaki does the whole resonance thing to get both of their karma marks activated, and they get to their fight. And what we get here is obviously a pretty small, short fight. It's just a brief sparring match here of effectively getting across how skilled the two of them are using their karma mark. But it's still just a sparring match. They're not trying to hurt each other. And we see more of Kawaki's kind of scientific ninja tool body, what he's able to turn his body parts into. We see him use the sort of laser beam attack again, and just getting across like karma enhanced shinobi versus karma enhanced kind of Kara ninja tool character. The difference in skill sets is pretty cool. The net result is that we get to this situation where after a pretty even exchange where Kawaki seems to have the rough power advantage, but Boruto's clever tactics with shadow clones nearly gives him the advantage. Kawaki decides, okay, you're agile and reasonably strong. Now let's see if you can use a key ability of the karma mark, which is that to absorb attacks. So he fires the laser at Boruto. Boruto's not really prepared for it, so he dodges the first one. But then in the air, he has to try and absorb the next one. But he just takes it straight to the hand. Now, Kawaki did say he probably wasn't going to make it hurt a lot, but it's still going to hurt a little. And they played it up more for comedy in that they did the big, throbbing red hand as Boruto clearly just is hurt, but not like badly injured by it. But he wasn't able to activate the absorption in time. So just highlighting that, Kawaki's not the best teacher, but they're playing up the fun dynamic here, in that they continue to argue, and then Naruto and Himawari react to the two of them having their kind of teenager argument here. So that's roughly where we settle on that. But the key thing more than anything is in the aftermath, Naruto's like, don't forget, end of a sparring match, do the unison sign. So they do the unison sign, and as they hold it, suddenly Boruto gets a vision of Momoshiki, and there seems to be a sort of reaction on both of their sides to them connecting in that way. Very, very interesting dynamic here, because they haven't really brought up Momoshiki and his connection to Boruto's karma market in kind of a while, in that you almost forget at this point in the anime, taking out all the stuff we know about the manga, we have the answer. You have to remember about the reason Boruto has that karma mark is because he was the one who dealt the finishing blow against Momoshiki, and Momoshiki left this behind on Boruto. And given what we've learned about Kawaki and how he has his karma mark, you can begin to make some sort of connections here, even if you can't fully create the answer just yet. And that's what I really like about this, in that I know Tatsuki appearing on screen here is fascinating, but it highlights this idea that Momoshiki is dead, isn't he? But here was clearly a vision of him that wasn't just presented to us as a reminder of this is where he got it from, but no, kind of the presence of Momoshiki Otsutsuki persists in a way. What's the deal there? And that's why this is definitely one of the most intriguing kind of parts of the episode. And I kind of would very much like to know what the anime only reaction is to that. Given that as a manga reader, I already know the full situation with the karma mark. Anyway, I think it's just a cool little clue of you now have a little bit of extra information to work with to try and figure out what karma marks actually are. So the point here though is that only Boruto sees this kind of image of Momoshiki. No one else does. Kawaki doesn't seem to have this specific vision. They just note that something has happened. Both of their reactions to this event they see. Kashin Koji even kind of witnesses it through the monitor toad thing. They mainly witness that Boruto's hand heals, and that was kind of involuntary, highlighting that in a way, is there another thing controlling when Boruto's power activates to sort of protect him? Interesting. So there's that, and at this point, we see Delta just kind of just simmering in the background of she is so angry that Kashin Koji has dived into the Leaf Village, leaving her behind. And she knows she's going to cause a bit of a chaos in the village if she dives in. But she just gets so angry, she wants to take someone out so heavily. She dives into the village after she spots where Kawaki is. And so the last sequence of the episode is just, the barrier team being notified of someone else is in the village, Naruto preparing for her arrival. And yeah, just the initial encounter between the two of them of Kawaki knows who this is, Naruto's gonna stand up to her. Like I said, hype setup of Naruto versus Kara inner member should be pretty interesting. So they leave us hanging here, but what it means is that the next episode, and probably the one afterwards as well, it should be pretty much at least 1.5 or 2 episodes of this fight, are going to be pretty interesting. I wonder how much, big budget animation we're going to get. Or is one of these episodes going to be full on, perfect, big animation? Or are they only going to treat this as kind of being a kind of okay fight, and they'll only do good animation but not quite everything that we maybe want to see? Now, my opinion is that I think the way it's presented in the manga, this is not the greatest fight in Naruto. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's paced particularly well. I don't think a lot of the choreography is that great. It just is a little bit of a slow build, and there's a lot of taijutsu, talking, build-up, and not a lot of, big action happening. So I think straight away the anime is going to make this better than the manga because um, anime taijutsu sequences are just 10 times more interesting than um, manga taijutsu sequences. Just because you actually see the movement, you see the technique, and usually they go a little bit all out, showing some of that hand-to-hand combat. Whereas in the manga, it just feels like, okay, page upon page of punch kick, not a lot of interesting stuff going on here. But they're gonna blow through those pages of taijutsu in seconds in animation, so they have to sort of extend out the fight to make up the core of the episode. Now, I am assuming we will get some scenes of Kara, because there's not a lot of cutaways in the manga or kind of side plots going on in the manga. So that's why I assume they have set up this plot in the background of Code and Boro. So we're going to, I suppose, fill up some of the time in these episodes with Code heading out, Amado getting permission from Jigen, Code going after Boro, introducing us, I suppose, properly to Boro, ahead of what's coming next from in terms of manga content after this fight. But yeah, Taijutsu is definitely going to be better. And I would hope that they maybe add in just a few other sequences of like them throwing more unique attacks at each other. Because I doubt they're going to change the flow of the fight too much. So we're still going to get the relatively slow pace of, you know, the kind of them both sort of feeling each other out, building up to, of course, the higher end stuff. Those things are still going to happen. They're not going to fundamentally alter the way the fight goes. But I definitely think there are things they can do to just make it overall a more entertaining and exciting fight. And I have full confidence that the anime will do that. So any problems that the manga has with this fight, I don't really think will be particularly present here. Though I am assuming the same debates that came up at the time with these chapters of, are they presenting Naruto as powerful as he should be? Those type of things will come up. But again, my problem is less from like a Naruto power level perspective and more of a fight pacing, kind of the writing of the fight perspective. You know, how you book the characters effectively because you're writing a fight. That's more of my kind of issues with this, rather than just, you know, Naruto should one-shot Delta or whatever people were saying at the time. So, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. There have been my thoughts, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.